this episode, I speak with bestselling author, podcaster, inspiring speaker, and enigmatic influencer, Jimmy Moore. Key points addressed were Jimmy's extensive personal history with fasting and his personal narratives about the myths, struggles, and immense benefits from a fasting lifestyle. We also discussed some of the important scientific and medical measurements involved in intermittent fasting that were also covered in his book that he co-authored with Dr. Jason Fung, titled The Complete Guide to Fasting. Stay tuned for my fascinating talk with Jimmy Moore. My name is Patricia Kathleen, and this series features interviews and conversations I conduct with experts from medicine and science to health and humanitarian arenas in an effort to explore the world of fasting from a variety of angles. This dialogue is meant to develop a more complete story about the information, research, personal stories, and culture in and around the science and lifestyle of fasting. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to check out our subsequent series that dive deep into specific areas such as founders and entrepreneurs, vegan life, and roundtable topics. They can be found on our website, patriciakathleen.com, where you can also join our newsletter. You can also subscribe to all of our series on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and YouTube. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I am your host, Patricia, and today I'm so excited to be sitting down with Jimmy Moore. Jimmy is a best-selling author, podcaster, and inspiring speaker. You can find out more on his website, llvlc.com. It stands for Livin La Vida Low-Carb.com. Again, it is llvlc.com. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hey, what's going on?
Hi, I'm excited to climb through things. I was just telling you off the air, I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts and gotten into some of your online lectures and things on YouTube, and I can't wait to really climb through. Our audience has really reached out to us and asked us to speak with people who have an in-depth and really intimate knowledge of fasting, and I can't wait to ask you all of our questions today.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of different kinds of fasting. When I was writing this book with Dr. Jason Fung, I actually had never done a really long fast, so I did some of those, which we talked about in the book. So yeah, happy to talk about this subject that's a little taboo in some circles, and it's really cool in other circles.
Yeah, I think it's gaining popularity, to say the least. For everyone listening, a quick roadmap for today's podcast. For those of you that are new to our series, I will start by reading a quick bio on Jimmy, and then I will drop into asking him about his own personal history. If he's got kind of a succinct elevator pitch story, he can let us know about himself and how he came into the fasting world. And then I'll drop straight into asking him to clarify some definitions and terms that we all think we know about, but we don't. And then we'll just kind of pepper our questions through. All of you have written in. I want to make sure we answer the rapid fire questions. Jimmy has said that he's more than happy to just go off the cuff and answer everything that you guys have asked us. I'll make sure to get the bulk of those asked. Yeah, it'll be a fascinating half an hour, 45 minutes for me, to say the least. Really quickly, before I start peppering Jimmy with all of our questions, a bio on him. Jimmy Moore is an internationally best-selling author, podcaster, and inspiring speaker who is a highly sought-after lecturer around the world. He catapulted onto the health scene in 2004 after phenomenal 180-pound weight loss enabled him to come off prescription drugs for high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and respiratory problems. He is the energetic personality behind the uber popular blog Livin La Vida Low-Carb and the host of the longest running and top-ranked health podcast, Livin La Vida Low-Carb Show, as well as the Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. The KetoHacking MD Podcast and the Nutritional Pearls Podcast. So he's a podcast veteran. He has interviewed well over 1,400 of the world's top health experts and has dedicated his life to helping people to get the best information possible about nutrition and lifestyle so that they can make the right decisions for their health. He's authored or co-authored a series of books, including Keto Clarity, the Keto Cure, the Ketogenic Cookbook, and the Complete Guide to Fasting and Cholesterol Clarity. So we'll climb into some of those books, hopefully, while we're talking today, Jimmy, and things of that nature. But I want you to, if you would just start off, we had a little bit of like a teaser in that bio, but if you could talk to people a little bit about what brought you to investigating the fasting lifestyle and some of your own personal narrative with that.
Well, it started not with fasting, but with changing the eating altogether. I used to be the junkiest of junk food eater. Back in 2003, I weighed 410 pounds. I was drinking 16 cans of Coca-Cola a day. I was eating whole boxes of like Little Debbie snack cakes. I was a junk food junkie, and I was eating like there was no tomorrow. And what I started on to lose the 180 pounds was the Atkins diet. Got a diet book for Christmas in 2003. And in 2004 was when I kind of changed my diet. And what was interesting about switching over to an Atkins diet from a SAD diet is I found I wasn't as hungry during the day. Now, that was odd for me because I was used to eat and then like 30 minutes later, man, I'm hungry, eat again, or just constantly eating all day. So I went from a heavy, constantly eater guy over to a few meals a day kind of guy, like 3 meals a day with no snacks, no junk food, no nothing. Then that morphed into only 2 times a day. And of course, when you only eat that infrequently, what are you doing? You're spontaneously intermittent fasting. Now, I remember in the late 2000s, this was a few years after I did this for a while, somebody said, you should try doing like an extended fast of like, I don't know, 24 to 36 hours. I'm going, why would I do that? Like, I enjoy the low carb. It's so easy to just eat this way, and I'm satiated. I feel good. My health markers are all great. Why would I do that? And so they're like, try it. And I remember trying it, but doing it horribly. Like I dipped my toe into trying to do it for 24 hours. And I was drinking diet soda still at the time. Bad idea if you're trying to fast, by the way. And other things that were stoking hunger still. So it wasn't until I met Dr. Fung, who's my co-author on the Complete Guide to Fasting. When I met him at a conference, we shared a stage together in South Africa in 2015. And I heard him talking about fasting. And I was so fascinated by what he was sharing. I went up to him afterward and I'm like, dude, like, is there a book out there about extended fasting and trying to do this longer than just a day or so? He's like, no. I said, want to write one? And so that's how Complete Guide to Fasting came about. But I was like, I can't do this book and give it justice if I don't actually go through this. So I started experimenting with longer fasts. And even before that book came along, I did try a 7-day fast that again included bone broth and kombucha and different things that I thought I needed. If you have to add anything to water and salt to a fast, then it's not really going to help you. People think it will, but it really doesn't in the end. So I did several like 7-day fasts. I did 3 21-day fasts, which is a really interesting thing. In fact, when we were coming out with the book and I went on a podcast speaking tour, I was full on in the midst of a 21-day fast, and I'd go on a show. Yeah, I'm on day 12 of my fast. And they're like, what? So it was kind of fun to do that. And I was so energetic and I was so, vibrant. I wasn't lacking in energy. It was kind of fun. And then a very lucidness in my brain. So my curiosity was born out of a spontaneity because of my dietary choices made it easy. My continued curiosity is when I learned more of the benefits, things like autophagy, things like resetting kind of some of the insulin sensitivity that you're looking for. Those were the things that got more exciting to me. Now, the major reason most people go on a fast is they think, oh, I'll lose weight. Well, duh. If you don't eat food, you're going to lose weight. That's a no-brainer. That should not ever be your primary reason for going on a fast. If anything else, I think it's for the autophagy. It's for the brain health benefits. It's for kind of giving your pancreas a break for a little while. Those are all the reasons that I go on a fast today.
Yeah, let's climb it straight into that. You've dropped some terms, and for everyone who's new to it or still kind of climbing into the fasting industry, I'd love to know how you personally define. I don't need, your health definition of it, just how you personally, when you think of these words, what your brain is saying to you. So first, let's start off with fasting, because you have actually a very interesting take at this. I've listened to a lot of your other YouTubes, and you talk about how you kombucha and things that you got flack for, in other communities. What to you is fasting, and what breaks a fast?
So it's tricky because you have some people out there promoting bone broth while you fast, promoting kombucha while you fast. And God forbid, if you're one of those people that thinks you can have a big bulletproof coffee that has MCT oil and butter and all the rest, that is calories. And by definition, if you're fasting, you're having no calories. And so if you're drinking bulletproof coffee, yes, it will keep your insulin low, but no, you most certainly are not fasting. So I want to get that one out of the way first. To me, I'm a little more hard-nosed about it than even I used to be. I think if you're going to get the full benefits of fasting, you need to make it water and salt. And if you need to add other electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, that's fine. But water and salt are the primary things you need to be consuming. Sometimes there are people who need to take medications, and we talk about this in our book that, okay, if that's you, then have a little something, just very minuscule number of calories, under 200 calories for sure. You go over 200, you're basically telling your body, okay, it's feasting time. All right, so you get 400 calories of that bulletproof coffee. Okay, the body's going, okay, it's feasting to wait. Well, you're not feeding me what's going on, and you actually are more counterproductive when you're trying to fast with that limited amounts of calories. It's better to eat no calories at all than to eat a few hundred calories, because your body will be in feasting mode when it should be in fasting mode. So my definition from non-clinical is just, my definition is water, salt.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk a little bit about why the bone broth early on, it was doing that salt. You felt like it was supplementing that sodium need.
Right. And you can get the sodium without the bone broth. The bone broth had about 15 grams of protein, and that protein, whether we like it or not, it actually can stoke a bit of an insulin response, which stokes hunger. I found I was getting really, really sick. And then sometimes I would drink so much of it that it came out the other end. It wasn't pleasant. So you kind of have to be mindful of that. Yeah, I know, TMI, but we're talking about fasting. You got to talk about the real stuff.
Bring it. Yeah, absolutely. Bring it. So autophagy, when you quickly hear that word, what is the first basic definition you think of?
I remember when it first came out, I was like, the autophagy, and somebody says, no, it's autophagy. Oh, okay. It looks like autophagy. For me, it's cleaning up kind of dead proteins. There's like, people don't realize this, but there's like protein gets recycled again and again and again in your body. And so this is why you don't need to constantly be loading up on protein, because the body has a lot of proteins that are in the body just floating around. What autophagy does is it like roto-rooters them out of there. It just sucks them up like a vacuum. Now you can get some of that just in the day-to-day doing some intermittent fasting. The guy that won the Nobel Prize in medicine in 2016, the year that we came out with our book, just like the very same month, the guy that won the Nobel Prize in medicine actually got it because of his work with fasting and autophagy. And he found that within about a 72-hour period, you've done a good clean sweep of all those dead proteins that are just kind of floating around in your body. And you don't want this excess junk in your body. So it's a good, easy way to get rid of it. You can do autophagy in other ways. Exercise gives you autophagy. Even a ketogenic diet can do it somewhat, but nothing is as effective as a good 72-hour fast to clean all that stuff up.
Yeah, I like that definition. I haven't heard that before. And I had kind of a tweaked out, more complex definition of it. I think I'll start using yours. Are you speaking about Walter Longow with the 2016?
No, this was a guy in Japan. Sorry, I don't have his name. We put it in the book.
Yeah. It's actually, Walter Longow said he got it because he was in the field longer. But the fast mimicking and stuff that Longow does.
Well, yeah. The fasting diet definitely has become more popular. I'm a little bit not a fan of fasting mimicking, because it's like, why are you mimicking fasting when fasting is good enough? You don't have to mimic something that's not hard. It's almost like saying, I want to do a ketogenic mimicking diet. So let me load people up with beta hydroxybutyrate salts, and they're in ketosis, and then let them eat whatever they want. It doesn't work the same way. So I like it. If you're going to fast, don't mimic the fast, just fast.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to get into, I want to continue with the definitions just to get them out of the way. It helps clarify. I want to talk about how you define specific fast. So first define, let's do 16-8.
Yeah, 16-8 is probably the most popular intermittent fasting protocol. So it's 16 hours of not eating. You're eating within an 8-hour window. So just imagine you have your first meal 11 o'clock in the morning, and then your second meal at 7 o'clock at night, and then you don't eat again until 11 o'clock the next day. It's no big deal. That's a 16-8. Very easy for a lot of people, especially when you're eating foods that aren't stoking hunger. It's why I think kind of a low-carb ketogenic diet is a nice kind of ramp up to go into a fast. 16-8 should become very spontaneous and very easy for someone eating that way.
Okay. And what about OMAD?
OMAD is an interesting one because some people are like, should I go OMAD every day? I'm like, I mean, if your body tells you don't eat for 24 hours, fair enough. OMAD, by the way, stands for one meal a day. So it's ostensibly, it's about a 23 and a half, 24-hour fast. And I've done a lot of OMAD. I enjoy OMAD, especially days when I'm doing a lot of podcasts, I'm very busy and I don't have time to really stop and eat. It's just fun to just say, okay, I ate at 8 o'clock yesterday, and so I don't have to eat again until 8 o'clock this morning. It's just an easier kind of way. Now, I don't think you need to OMAD every single day. And with all these things that we're describing here, I think the more you mix up the fasting, the better. So if you're going to do OMAD one day, try a 16-8 the next day. After that, do alternate day fasting. Then go on to maybe a 24 fast and just kind of mix it up. Keep your body not knowing what's happening.
Okay. And then outside of, we can get into longer terms, but I would just be listing off hours from days. So you have OMAD, and then you go into 48, 72, 96, I've heard, and then you get into 5, 7 day. What are the most common types of fast, or the ones that you and Jason explore in the book?
Yeah, so intermittent fasting is the most common. I think that's where most people are going to get the benefits from fasting, is that intermittent fasting. So that could be 16-8, it could be 18-6, it could be 24, it could be OMAD. So those are all considered intermittent fasts. And I think the vast majority of people could probably get most of the benefits just by implementing one of those kinds of fasts. We also in the book talk about alternate day fasting. So that means today you eat, tomorrow you don't eat. The day after that you eat, the next day you don't eat. So what it ends up being is about a 36-ish hour fast when you do it that way. And when you're done with a very long fast, like a 7-day fast, for example, what we encourage people to do to keep the benefits going is to do alternate day fasting when it's over. So, and then there's people that are like fasting warriors and they go long term. And of course, consult with a physician or definitely someone like Dr. Fung who can help guide you. There's other people. There's somebody on Instagram, the fasting doctor, Dr. Cecily, and she does a great job as well with fasting. There's fasting MD. There's all kind of people out there that can help you kind of do this the right way. But if you want to try a longer fast, if you've never done longer than say 24 hours, don't go for a week. Unless you like pain.
Right.
If you can make it 24 hours, then shoot for 36. See how you do. If you make it to 36 and you're good, keep going, but don't make unrealistic expectations. This is where a lot of people mess up. They say, oh man, I've heard Jimmy Moore talk about going on a 7-day fast. Let's go. And I've never done more than 16 hours of a fast. Don't be the hero. This is like an incremental thing. You don't jump when you're in the gym. You don't jump right to the 500-pound deadlifts. No, you got to work your way up. You got to work that muscle up. And so if you're not quite ready, if your strength isn't there, if you haven't prepared your mind and body for something like that, then you're not going to succeed. So work your way up, start eating keto, then ramp up to intermittent fasting, which will probably happen spontaneously. Then try OMAD, then try 36 to 48 hours, then 72, and then 5 to 7 days. Let me say one more thing about longer fasts. I think you get the law of diminishing returns after 7 days. So you get great results up to 7 days, but then once you go beyond that, okay, you're getting more benefits, but then you start to have fall off as well. You start to have the concerns about maybe having some muscle loss. You have concerns about other issues coming up, of course, the hunger, which then could make you try to binge. So if you're going to do a longer fast, and plus one more thing, when you do a shorter fast, like 5 to 7 days, guess what? You can fast again next month. But if you do 14 days, 21 days, you can't fast again for maybe a couple months. So it enables you to do more periods of fasting, which I think cumulatively leads to more benefits in the long term.
Yeah, I want to climb into that a little bit more with you, because you've had a lot of rhetoric in your myriad of YouTubes and things like that with your different podcasts. But you do talk about also stress has been one of the big things, is particularly in your 21-day ones, where even happy stress, it was travel twice, I think, for you, but it was the saboteur of these longer fasts. Do you find that there's less chance of getting the sabotage effect of stress, or something that will prevent you from fasting on these shorter 7 days, or was it just accidental for you?
7 days is easy now. I could pretty much do 7 days in my sleep. It's so stupid easy now. But that's only because I've done this a while, because I've ridden the bicycle a little while, and now I'm popping wheelies in that 5 to 7 days. Yeah, I do think it becomes a matter of mind over body. At that point, you're kind of willing yourself to make it to 21 days. The example you're referring to was, I had a trip to Myrtle Beach, and it was day 17 of 21. And it was, I was with friends. It was an enjoyable time. It was everything, but it just overwhelmed my body, and my body's like, and I was just hungry, just like ravenously hungry. So just be mindful to plan your fasts around your life. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm going to fast, I'm going on vacation, it's the perfect time. And I'm like, no, don't do that to yourself. Enjoy your vacation, come back. If you've got a period of time when things are pretty chill, then fast. I will tell you, in the midst of this COVID-19 has been very challenging for a lot of people to be fasting, because the stress of it, and then all the racial tensions, and then just the everything in everybody's everyday lives. I have cautioned people, don't get gung-ho about going on a fast just because you have the time availability. Your body's going through some traumatic stuff right now. And no, it's not anything that you can necessarily deal with, because we're all dealing with it right now, other than doing meditation and all the things to try to relax yourself. When you feel your body's in a good place, then try fasting. Don't just jump into it and say, well, I'll do this to jumpstart my weight loss because I gained 15 pounds in quarantine. No.
Yeah.
You will sabotage your effort before you even begin.
Speaking about sabotage, we've had a lot of people write in that wanted to know, for you personally, do you have a list of like the top 5 saboteurs? Like you talked about diet soda in a lot of your history, and the stress aspect. Do you have things that people should watch out for when planning, say, their first 5 to 7 day fast? Say someone's gotten comfortable, they've done a 48, they've done a 72, they're climbing into your kingdom, and they want to do their first 7 day. What are like markers to look out for?
You better drink the crap out of this stuff, because water, people don't think about what's happening metabolically when you're fasting. And same thing happens when you're keto, but at an accelerated rate when you're fasting. Your body is dumping glycogen like crazy, and it really kicks in hard on the 3rd day. So if you're testing your blood sugar and you're testing your ketones, maybe on the day you start, it's like 85 for your blood sugar, and it's like maybe 0.7 on your blood ketones. But then day 2, you start getting all those ravenous feelings. Your body's like, okay, dude, it's time to eat. Oh, did you not remember to eat? Blah, blah, blah. And so day 2, your body kind of rebels against you. By day 3, something pretty magical happens. And it happens because your body's making this shift. It has dumped the glycogen stores. Your blood sugar has fallen, sometimes into a level that freaks people out. I had somebody tell me just yesterday, I'm on the 3rd day of my fast, and my blood sugar is 53. I'm like, congratulations, you feel good, right? She's like, oh yeah, but 53. I'm like, you feel good, right? She's like, yeah. I said, that's all that matters. 53 in the context of a fast is not hypoglycemia if you feel good. So people freak out about absolute numbers, because look what happened to her blood ketones. She went from 1.1 on day 2 to 3.9 on day 3. And so what happened was her body dumped the glycogen. Her body started using her own body fat stores as energy. She replenished the water. She replenished the electrolytes with the salt. Electrolytes and water are your friend. If you get hungry, drink and have electrolytes. If you get thirsty, drink. Like, I think we get so used to forgetting to drink, that we don't drink enough. I keep water by me all day long, even when I'm keto, just because it's helpful. That is the key. If you want to be successful on a longer fast, or even like an intermittent fast, you've never done it before, if you get hungry, drink. Like people, they just, should I drink? Drink. Like don't hold back. That is like the what was it, Weight Watchers? That's the 0 points. It doesn't cost you anything to drink water. So drink, and you're going to be glad because it makes you feel good. Sometimes people will also put the salt underneath their tongue. And so go underneath the tongue and just let it sit there, and it kind of oozes a little bit. You feel like you're having some chicken noodle soup. And sometimes when you have a hunger or a craving in the midst of a fast, do that little salt trick under the tongue. It's amazing how quick it disappears. And so I think people also psych themselves out. Oh, I should be eating. Oh, I heard a little gurgle. That must be hunger. Gurgles are not hunger. Gurgles is just your body is just adjusting. And especially once you kind of get to day 3, by day 3, it's party time. Like if you make it to day 3 of a fast, go 5 to 7. Don't just stop at 3, because that's where the magic is just beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. What about diet soda? You have a personal relationship with this. Does it sabotage a fast? What has it done for you and your body? And do other bodies respond differently?
Right. So some of the ones that, almost all of them, except for the ones sweetened with stevia, which the name brand Zevia, I think is the only one that's really good. But don't have any artificial sweeteners. And we talked about this again in our book as well, because when you have artificial sweeteners, people say, well, it's 0 calories, so it's 0. No, it's not 0. You need to look at artificial sweeteners as a negative. It's taking away from you, because what's it doing? In one of my other books, The Keto Cure, Dr. Nally and I actually talked about that sweeteners, while they may not raise your blood sugar, they will raise, in some people, their insulin. So the last thing you want to have happen when you're fasting is to raise your insulin, because what happens when you raise insulin levels and you have no food in your body? The body just screams at you and says it's time to eat, and it's not time to eat. But metabolically, your body's like, you just gave me some kind of substance that said it's party time, it's time to eat, and you're not eating. Homeboy, give us food or we're going to scream at you some more. And so just know that, have that visual of me screaming at you, that's what diet soda is doing to your metabolism in the midst of a fast. It's why you're going to get so much more satiated in your thirst and in your hunger when you have just water and salt.
You talk a lot about like the day 3, even in some of the other things, because of this kind of lifting and this ability to go forward. What are some of the misperceptions or misconceptions that you run into most when people come to you to talk to you about fasting? You've mentioned just recently, 5 minutes ago, this fear-based people have, they're very hyped up in their heads about longer fasts. Are there other misconceptions that attach to fasting with working out, or any of these things that you find very common in people who come to you going past a 2 or 3 day fast?
Oh, the biggest one is, am I starving myself? Is this an eating disorder? And that's kind of the funniest one to me, because people have this notion that fasting is starving. No, starving is where you have food available and you're not allowed to have it. That's being starved. In this case, you're in complete control. Fasting is all about you being the boss, and you're choosing not to eat for a period of time to get all the benefits that we were talking about here today. And if at any point it becomes overwhelming, guess what? You end the fast and you go eat. It's no big deal. So I think people psych themselves out thinking they're doing something harmful. Oh, I'm leaching my muscles. Oh, my bones are going to deteriorate. So they have all these kind of psychological visuals in their head of what they think is happening, when just the opposite is happening. There's really good things happening. I wish in real time we could have some device on us, like a CGM or something, that would show like insulin lowering, blood sugar lowering, inflammation lowering, because you would see this magical effect, especially by day 3, of all these things happening. If you could really see autophagy happening, that would be, oh my gosh, like put an autophagy machine on me and let's see it all, get eaten away. It would be awesome. But yeah, I think a lot of the barriers to people doing these longer fasts, it's all mental. They allow themselves to get talked out of it. And plus you got family members, you're doing what? You're not eating. Oh my gosh, you need to go into an eating disorder clinic. And it's just like, no. Don't tell anybody you're fasting. Just keep smiling. Wash your face a little bit if you're not feeling good. Keep drinking water. Keep having the salt. And in the end, you're the one that's going to have the last laugh because you have better health.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you about the machine hookup. I would love to see that stuff play out as well. And to that end, we've had a lot of people write in. You have experience with, going back at fasting, going back, having levels read in and out of a whole bunch of different things. But for the at-home faster, are there specific tools from keto strips to, any type of thing that you would recommend people pick up to kind of measure where they're at with their fasts?
Let me tell you one thing you don't need to do. Step on a scale. Can we just all agree we're going to smash the crap out of our scales because they're not really doing us any good? Obviously, you're going to lose weight in the midst of a fast. Obviously. But the thing is, it's not going to be that total amount that you lose during the fast. People go on a 7-day fast and they lose like 5 pounds. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. I needed to lose 5 pounds. And they eat 2 meals and they're back up 3. And I'm just like, don't do that to yourself. It's not about how much weight you lose during the fast. It's the cumulative effects that happen, that you lose 5 pounds in 7 days, but you gain back 3, but you lost 2 net. And then the next time you fast, you lose 7 pounds and you gain back 4, but you lost 3 net. It builds up over time. Don't look at the absolute amount of weight that you're losing during a fast and, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I can fit into the wedding dress. I can go to my high school reunion. And I'm just like, no, you're missing the point of fasting. So not the scale. Can we all agree on that one? Let's all take a sledgehammer to it. I'd love to go out in my driveway and do like a slow motion and just watch it shatter. But I'm dramatic, sorry. As far as tools you can do at home, sorry, I have fun when I'm on podcasts. Tools you can do at home, definitely test your blood sugar. Like, it's so stupid easy to go down to Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, and get a glucometer. If you can get your doctor to prescribe you this thing called a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, you can put it in your arm and you can, on a whim, know what your blood sugar is anytime over a 2-week period. So pretty cool tool. And what that's showing you is your body's need for glucose going down, down, down. People like that lady the other day that wrote me and had the 53. I'm like, where would you need glucose? You're not eating anything at all. And she's like, oh, I guess I don't. So it dawned on her, oh, wow, that's true. When I'm not eating food, my body doesn't need glucose. Why would it have glucose? So you're having lower levels. Now, it still needs a few bits of glucose for the glucose-dependent functions in the body, but it does that with various processes in the body to create that glucose. One thing that I do highly recommend, too, is testing your ketones. So there's various things out there. You can pee on a stick. Don't think that's very accurate. By day 3 of a fast, you're going to see deep dark purple, and it's never going to change anything else. So it's not really helping you that much. And plus, if you don't stay hydrated enough, it's going to turn purple, but it's a false purple. Or if you overhydrate, it's going to take away. So it's not accurate. I don't like urine ketones. Breath ketones, I found this device recently here. I'm going to show you on camera, called the Biosense. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it lets you blow into it, and on your smartphone, it gives you a readout, and it's a 10-to-1 ratio to the blood ketone, which, if you're going to test, blood is kind of the gold standard. If you want to test, there's all kind of meters out there. Keto Mojo, Precision Extra, Keto Coach X. There's a bunch of them out there. But test where you are. And what this is measuring is your body's ability to be burning fat for fuel. So people that are on a ketogenic diet, you're familiar with this. Ketogenic is kind of a lower end of nutritional ketosis, whereas when you get into fasting, you're going on a much higher end of like the lower end would be somewhere between 0.5 to like 2.5, 3. Mm-hmm. When you go on a fast, it's about 2.5 to 6. Potentially. When I've been deep in a fast of like day 12, I've seen a 6.8 on the blood ketones, which means all that stored body fat is being released, and it's actually getting in the bloodstream, and it's actually serving as fuel for the body. So people are like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten in X amount of days. No, you're eating every single day, even when you're fasting, because you're tapping into those stored body fat. The reason the body fat is there is for such a time as this, when there is famine and there's no food availability, you're able to survive because you have body fat on your body.
So this, really quickly, the Biosense, which I haven't heard about. I think I've seen them actually on different things. How accurate do you feel? Because you are testing your blood regularly. What's the correlation? I don't like the sticks either. I think that they go healthy over time. And who knows how long they've been sitting on the shelf. But I'm wondering with the Biosense, the correlation, is it close enough for you or no?
Yeah, the reason I've been impressed with it and the reason I like it, number one, I don't have to prick my finger anymore because it's that good. But they put it through some FDA trials. They've done many kind of studies using it. It's a 10-to-1 ratio. So when you see a 10 show up on this meter, that's just like a 1.0 on the blood meter. And so breath is measuring this ketone called acetone in the breath. The blood is measuring this ketone body called beta hydroxybutyrate. You don't need to remember this for a test, but I might test you later and we'll see. But BHB is beta hydroxybutyrate, is the gold standard. But if you can find a breath device that will translate 10-to-1, so a 25 on here would be a 2.5. So if you're in the midst of a fast and you blow a 25, you kind of know, okay, I'm starting to ramp up my ketones. I like this one too because it's a more efficient way. It's a less painful way. The device itself is a little bit expensive. It's a medical grade device, and so it's up there in price, but it's a one-time expense and you don't have to keep buying strips and have blood and all that stuff. So I think it's a good trade-off. But yes, I love that meter, and it's kind of new to the market. With what I do for a living, I have all kinds of companies writing me all the time, and most of them are garbage. I just throw them to the side. Okay, that was nice. But this one, when I got it, I was like, whoa, okay, now we're seeing a real deal. This is something that I think moving forward, we're going to see more of these kinds of like easy devices that will make it easier to track your biomarkers.
Absolutely. And then really quickly, we kind of glazed over the glucometer. How are you using that to gauge? Is it using it to gauge as to whether or not your body is releasing, or what are you having people look at those levels for?
So when you get into, let's say you're doing a 5-day fast. So you put it on, or you test your blood sugar on day 1 and it's 95. By day 2, it's down to 87. But by day 3, it's down to 71. You see in real time where your blood sugar is coming down. It shows you that the fasting is doing something metabolically. So sometimes people are like, wow, that day 2 was so bad, and I just blah, blah, blah. I don't know if this is worth it. Check your blood sugar, because at that point, you'll see, okay, my glucose is going down. I am doing good things in my body. And then you test along with the ketones and you see it going up as the blood sugar is going down. It's just kind of a snapshot of what's going on metabolically inside your body. And sometimes that gives people confidence that maybe they don't feel well because it's the first time they try to fast like this, but they're doing good stuff. And so for me, it's a motivational factor more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different measurement than the horrible scale as well, as you mentioned earlier. What do you think about some of you said, because you're such a personality and such a brand with fasting, I'm curious what you think about some of the personalities and brands with fasting out there. You have really extreme ones, and I don't know if you follow any of them. There's this snake juice guy, Cole, who people feel like it's just crazy, and he's been blacklisted by a lot of different groups that feel like he's coming at it in a different way. He's got the snake juice where it talks about the salts and things like that I think are necessary. But what is your personal take on some of the fasting personalities out there right now?
Yeah, Cole's an interesting one. I've never met him in person. I've definitely never had him on my podcast before. I did hear him on Michaela Peterson's podcast recently. He's pretty reasonable. I think he plays this persona on YouTube because he feels like he needs that to get attention. Like, I've never really had to do anything like that to get attention. I get lots of attention. So I think if you're compelling with information, you don't have to go to that extreme of using horrible language like he does. So, but I guess he has a crowd that loves that. So be it. Go for it, Cole. I do think Dr. Fung is compelling. He's just so good at explaining things and breaking things down. It was such a joy. I've had many co-authors on books. This was the funnest book to write with a co-author because he and I have a very similar writing style. So I think he does a good job. But I'll tell you, his cohort in crime, Megan Ramos, I love that little lady to death. She is amazing. She's a bubbly personality, and she probably, other than Dr. Fung, has more fasting experience with patients and herself doing fasts than probably anybody else in the whole world. And so I really like her, and like Dr. Cecily Ann I mentioned earlier, the fasting doctor. And then there's a fasting MD. There's a few people out there. There's not nearly enough people talking about what I like to refer to affectionately as the other F word. I think we need more people. People have kind of slipped it into their work here and there. Oh yeah, intermittent fasting. I'm like, okay, yeah, intermittent, but talk about some of the benefits of the longer as well. I think if you mix it up, and we have educators doing that, we need more people doing that.
I agree. And I agree with what Megan Ramos and Jason Fung, they're very digestible as well. You know, it's difficult to have this beautiful bridge between the scientific and the applicability. And I feel like the book, the Complete Guide to Fasting that you wrote with Jason Fung, and a lot of what Megan Ramos writes on as well, is digestible and applicable, which is nice with having that scientific backing. We had a lot of people write in and ask you personally what the hardest aspect of fasting is for you to date.
Oh, it's still day 2. Day 2 is because like you wake up on day 1, and if you're keto, that's just OMAD. If you're going to fast the first day, it's just OMAD. It's no big deal to OMAD. Day 2, the body's kind of going, hello, Jimmy, it's time to eat, dude. Hello. And it's like you get those subtle, it's just kind of like jars you. It's like, okay, it's time to eat. Okay. And that's when on day 2, it's so hard. That's probably my challenge. I'll tell you what I want to try when I do day 2s from now on. I've been thinking a lot about this, not wanting to add in things other than salt and water, but I wonder, I'm just thinking out loud here on your show today, I wonder if adding in on day 2 some exogenous ketones along with the water and the salt might mitigate some of that day 2 suckiness. And of course, those of you that don't know what exogenous ketones are, so these are drinkable beta hydroxybutyrate ketones, all kinds of companies making them out there now. So I don't want to give any company a plug, but look them up, exogenous ketones, EKs. So I wonder if on day 2, you sipped on EKs all day. Now, of course, at that point in the fast, your body's also starting to make that switch over from dumping the glycogen stores and then running primarily on ketones by day 3, the endogenous ketones. So I wonder if a stopgap measure between day 1 and 3 on day 2 is to take those EKs. So I definitely want to experiment with that, because if you can lessen the severity of day 2, you're going to get more buy-in factor for people to do longer fasts.
Yeah, I want to know that too. I'm desperate to find out now that you've said that. I find day 2 to be a beast. At night, I can't sleep on day 2. It's my big, I like, if I've got an all-nighter to pull, I should be fasting.
Can we talk about sleep in the midst of a longer fast? Because I think this is a big topic that people are, oh my gosh, my sleep was wrecked when I went on a fast. The reason people say that is they don't sleep as long. Of course, I wear a little tracking device. I will give them a plug or a ring. They don't pay me anything, but I get to see the different phases of the sleep. Can I tell you, when I'm fasting, and it's like day 2, 3 of a fast, that is kind of the worst period for it, it does impact your sleep, but it's not in a negative way. What it does, and I've talked to several sleep experts about this, when you get into a really deep state of ketosis, your body does not need to do as much repair when you're sleeping. And so it stands to reason that if you're used to getting about 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, and then you're fasting or you're going in a really deep state of ketosis on a ketogenic diet, that you might go from 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep to about 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep. And yet the quality of the sleep, the REM cycle, the deep sleep cycle, all of that recovery is far better on the shorter term sleep than it is on the longer sleep when you're not in that good metabolic state. So shorter sleep, as far as time in bed, does not mean you had crappier sleep. You had more efficient sleep. So I do know some people do have trouble because they start having the hunger, and the hunger keeps them awake. And okay, those are real issues, but most people don't just see shorter period of time in bed, meaning that you had worse sleep. It might have been more efficient.
Absolutely. And we've had a lot of people on the show talk about dreaming, increasing.
Oh,
Pulls us over into what I want to talk about next.
yeah.
The dreams and then the intensity and the severity and all of that, speaking to a greater sleep cycle itself. But I want to climb into, people who listen to the show know that I came to fasting for the mental benefits. And academics of old have long since talked about tapping into this, the clarity that happens with longer fasts and different kinds of fasting and utilizing fasting for mental acuity. And other people talk about lifting a fog that they've had and things of that nature. I want to know your personal experience with some of the mental benefits when you get into 48 hours all the way up to a week of fasting.
Oh my gosh, like the mental health benefits, if I never lost a pound, if I never got any other benefits whatsoever, there ain't no tripping drug quite like going over 48 hours of fasting. I promise you guys, like if you've never pushed yourself to see if you could do this again, like we talked about earlier, work your way up to that. But if you get into that magical day 3 into day 4 and beyond, this is never sharper. I mean, I'm a pretty quick-witted kind of guy as it is, just naturally, that's just the way I am. But when I'm in a fast, it's like I'm on some kind of drug. And so, and I don't want to like oversell it, but the point is you're clearing your brain of all of the things that were inhibiting it from being completely clear. And think about this, 70% of your brain is fat. And so it stands for, yes, I just called you all a fathead, so you're welcome. So am I, I'm a fathead as well. But we're fat heads, and that means we're ketone heads. So when you're ramping up your body's ability to tap into stored body fat, which then translates into higher ketone levels, lower glucose, guess what happens? Those ketones shoot right into the brain, and your body, your brain actually prefers to be fueled by ketones. This is why people get the energy boost. This is why people get very clear mind. Mood control. Like, can you imagine all the people that are so anxious right now with all the stuff happening in the world, how this is a calming effect? I read a story right after all this went down where mental health drugs are up by like 36%. People are taking them more than ever before. No, fast for a few days, keto for a little while, and you won't need mental health drugs because you're going to start to be chill. Doesn't mean you're never anxious, doesn't mean you're never depressed, but it means you're able to handle it better because your brain's being fueled properly. And I would say if you want to have a reason to do this more than any other, it's the mental health.
Absolutely. I think people really play down, especially in our society in the United States of America, what mental health really brings, and really a clear, and not just mental health, meaning you're not taking Klonopin, but mental health meaning, that you wake up every day feeling alive, and your mind and your thoughts and those types of things able to function, and how that affects the rest of our quality of life happiness. I'm wondering how we've had a lot of people reach in and say that they wanted me to ask someone who had a lot of rhetoric with doctors. There are a lot of people that are timid about explaining to their health practitioners on any level that they're fasting for fear of judgment and not having all of the answers. Can you speak to either resources that you have that you plug into with people who are new to fasting, or a way to vet an MD, or would you even tell people to tell their doctors that they're playing around with fasting? Where do you stand with all of that?
I'm going to be controversial.
Cool.
Don't tell your doctor. Just like don't tell your doctor you're on a ketogenic diet. You're going to get a lecture because, see, here's the thing. Why would you tell your doctor about your fasting attempt or your ketogenic attempt? Why, when they've never been trained in nutrition and the metabolic effects of what happens when you eat, or in this case, not eat for a period of time? Guys, they don't know. They've been taught pharmacology and physiology. You break your arm, they know how to put it back together. You have some symptom, they have a pill for it. That's it. Like, we have to stop glorifying physicians as if they're the be all end all. I think the traditional mainstream physician model is dying. I think they're going to be gone and obsolete within the next decade. And we're going to see more functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, people that look at the core issues of what's going on. And it's those people that are very interested, that you're interested in ketosis and in fasting. So my short answer is don't tell them, just do it. And if you're type 2 diabetic, watch your A1C drop, watch your need for, now the caveat there, if you are on some kind of medication, do tell your doctor that you're doing some things and you would like for him to monitor your insulin intake, your drug intake, and that kind of thing, so he can adjust it. You might blow his mind and he might ask you, what are you doing? You're coming off of all your medications. And at that point you could say, well, I read this book. I listened to this podcast. I listened to this lecture series. And it convinced me I needed to give this a go. Are you pleased with the results, doc? Of course they're going to say, yeah. And he might say, I don't want to know what you're doing, but keep doing whatever it is. And at that point you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that, people are on statins. I mean, there's all sorts of, it's limitless, when you get into fasting. But I think that there's been a lot of people writing in who are of the same feather, that there's just been a lot of resistance talking to natural practitioners. And I think you're right. I think everyone has finally discovered that, they're about disease and death and not about health and living. So.
Something about mainstream medicine that we need to give them a little bit of a break. I give them a hard time because that's my job as an influencer in this space. But I think they are trapped because there is this thing called standard of care. Patients don't understand standard of care. But standard of care requires a doctor that if you have certain numbers on a panel, like a cholesterol panel, for example, that hits some mark, they are required to push the drug or whatever the given protocol is on the patient. Now, the patient doesn't know any better. Oh, okay, the doctor says I should take this statin. So they go fill it, they start taking it, they get all the joint pain and all the everything. And then the doctor, oh, you must be getting older. That's what happens when you get older, you get joint pain. Never mind, it's the drug they prescribe them for the cholesterol lowering. And so let's give the doctors a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that they're kind of stuck in a system that forces their hand to do things, and standard of care is a thing. Now, what you can do as a patient is play the game with them, okay? Let them do their prescribing because that's the standard of care. Just because you get a little sheet of paper that's got a little prescription on it doesn't mean you got to go down to Walgreens and fill it. So I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying you, at the end of the day, as the patient, you're the boss in that relationship. He's merely a consultant. He or she is merely a consultant in your health. At the end of the day, you're the CEO of you, and you decide what's best for you.
Yes, 1,000%. And I think taking that kind of control and that clarity and taking them for being, I was like, what's the burden that you've had to, since the 1950s as a doctor, to carry around this godlike status is ridiculous, and anyone who wants to rise to that challenge has issues anyway. So I think that clarifying that they're human beings studying a specific part of our life cycle or, disease issues within that really clarifies things, as you're saying. Well, Jimmy, we're almost out of time, and I'm bummed out because I could listen to you forever, but I want to get the final piece of what because you're this prolific personality and you've said so much over the past few years, I'm wondering, do you have like an elevator pitch? Do you have like a top 3, a top 5, or just a top singular piece of advice that you give to people about fasting or how it's affected your life?
Oh my gosh, there's so many directions, and we've hit on a bunch of them in today's show. I think just do it. I think what causes people to hesitate is just a bunch of head stuff. Just do it. Like, people are like, I don't know where to start. I'm like, start. That's where you start. Start. Like, I ate this morning. I had a ribeye steak this morning around 8 o'clock. I'm still not hungry, and it's almost 8 hours later. You just start. You just do it. You don't even think about it. And so feed yourself well. When you are eating, feed yourself really good, high quality, real whole foods. You can be keto. It'll definitely help, but you don't have to be keto. You can be paleo, whole 30, whatever your choice, carnivore, and do what you want. Vegetarian might be a little bit tricky. Vegan might be a little bit tricky because you do need some of that nutrition from the meat and the animal-based foods. But you can start by kind of, when you aren't eating, or when you are eating really high quality food. That's a good basis. Mm-hmm. Then switch over and let your body just go. Listen to your body, allow yourself to calm everything down, and just methodically go through the process. I think, again, psyching yourself out is not going to help you, because the stress of all that, guess what? It's going to make you hungry because your body can't stay calm. So give this a go and do methodically. Let's check this out. You've never done more than 16 hours. You make a goal of 24. You made it 19 and a half. Guess what? You just made your longest fast ever. Then you try 20 again and you make it 22. Guess what? You just made your longest fast ever. I think we're in this all or nothing mentality when it comes to things like fasting. And, oh, I failed to make, like I sometimes do 7-day challenges on my Instagram on Jimmy Rants. And people, oh, I only made it 3 days. I'm like, what was your longest fast before that? 16 hours. I'm like,
yeah,
you just went 3 days. Congrats. You went more than 3 times as long as you ever have. So it's like putting things in perspective, keeping them in perspective, and realizing this is a journey, not a race. And in the long run, if you get into the habit of doing this and it becomes a habit that makes you healthier, in the end, you win.
Yeah, I agree. Too right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. I know you're wildly busy, and I'm so happy that you came on. I know our audience is really going to appreciate it, and I love your candor and everything that you're saying.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. For everyone listening, we've been talking with Jimmy Moore. He's a best-selling author, podcaster, and inspiring speaker. You can find out more on his website, llvlc.com. That's Livin La Vida Low-Carb.com, llvlc.com. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending this hour with us. I appreciate all of you. And this is me reminding you to stay safe, stay kind to each other, eat responsibly and clean when you do eat, and always bet on yourself. Sláinte.